Hey guys, I'm Pixel Dan, and this is a review of the Masters of the Universe Classics, Sy-Klone. The heroic fist-flinging tornado makes his debut in the Classics lineup. Sans fist-flinging tornado action feature, of course. So is this figure any good without it? Let's find out. Sy-Klone comes in the same style blister card that all of the single-carded figures have come in since the beginning of the line. The back of that box shows other figures in the lineup, and a brand new bio for Sy-Klone. Now I think the first thing that really stands out about Sy-Klone is his paint job. Sy-Klone has always been one of the brightest characters color-wise, utilizing a lot of blues and yellows in his design. But this takes the cake as far as brightness goes. Not only is he probably the brightest figure so far in the Classics line, but this version of Sy-Klone even outshines his previous versions. You'll see that later on. Now here's one thing I was very excited to see. Sy-Klone includes his famous radar dish embedded on his chest, which is an actual working lenticular piece, just like the original. This, in my opinion, was a must-have for Sy-Klone, so I am very happy to see it included. Once again, the Four Horsemen have done a tremendous job with the sculpt of Sy-Klone. The look and feel of the character is mostly vintage in style, which is common for this lineup. But there are some additions that have a hint of 2000X inspiration, such as that red ring attached to his back. Being a Gar like Keldor, Sy-Klone has a bright blue face. Now he often gets looked at as just a blue He-Man wearing a different outfit. While I can see the resemblance, I think it's just because he's a regular humanoid male with no real distinct facial features. But looking at that sculpt, you can see that it is in fact different than He-Man's face. Besides, there's already a blue He-Man. Duh, winning. Sy-Klone. Shoulders. I don't know, guys. They look okay to me, but maybe you should take a closer look. I think Sy-Klone's shoulders are okay. Seems like they're on straight. Biceps twisting all the way around. I don't see any awkwardness here. I think we have straight shoulders. Cool. Alright, so let's take a closer look at Sy-Klone's actual body design here. Now, Sy-Klone is different than a lot of the figures we see in the Masters of the Universe line because he doesn't utilize the standard buck that we see with most of the male characters. Now, when I first saw Sy-Klone coming out, I thought what they were going to do with him was something similar to what we've seen with characters like Optic, where his body piece was just an armor that was sculpted on. But that is not the case here, because the way Sy-Klone's build is actually his buck. So this isn't the standard buck with an armor piece over it. This is actually how the figure is sculpted. So we've got quite a bit of new tooling going on here with Sy-Klone. As you can see, the front of it's got that awesome lenticular radar dish going on. And the back of it is even kind of extended out, a little blocky, where the red ring of doom attaches. I just saw a bunch of Xbox 360 fans shudder when I said those words. So let's talk a little bit about that red ring, shall we? The red ring detaches right from the back. As you can see, it just plugs on in and comes right off. The reason for this is because we've actually got a use for the ring this time. Now, I'll be honest and go on the record and say I wasn't really a fan of this big red ring on the 2000X figure. I never really understood the reason for it. Maybe this is a little bit better. I kind of like what we got going on here, what Mattel did. So the ring can detach. You've got a handle on it. So now Sy-Klone can actually hold on to this ring. Although it is kind of a big handle and it doesn't fit in his hand great. You actually kind of have to work at it. It kind of reminds me of the Whiplash weapon with the big handle. As you can see, I am just struggling with it here. Attached. Okay, so we got it on. We got it on. So basically, we've got a weapon now. Now, maybe it's like a big giant blade, in which case that's kind of awesome. Because just think about Sy-Klone whipping around, holding this huge blade and just taking out bad guys. How freaking cool is that? I actually kind of like that. Now, of course, I mean, it just displays on his back, and if you remember the 2000X figure, it actually kind of like came down over his body, and you don't really have that going on here. I mean, as you can see, it stops at his arms, so you can't fold it down all the way, but what you can do is if you want to, you can actually unclip it, you can bring it around this way, and you can still plug it into his back. You know, put his arms out to his side like that, and maybe you, woo, he's got like a hula hoop, woo, you love Sy-Klone, Sy-Klone loves his hula hoops. But anyway, kind of a cool little design thing there that you can do with them. So one last thing I want to talk about with Sy-Klone is the arm fins. Now it's kind of cool how the Four Horsemen actually pulled this off. If you remember, the vintage and the 2000X Sy-Klone figures both had this blue fin going up the entire side of the arms. It wasn't a problem with those because there was no articulation going down the arm. Nothing on the elbow, nothing on the bicep. Of course, with Masters of the Universe Classics, this creates a problem, except they found a great way to work around it. You see, the fin piece is actually only attached on the bicep between the joints. It doesn't attach to the entire length of the arm, but is actually stretched out to look like it. But there's still enough space between the fin and the arm that a full range of motion is still allowed. The fin does not hinder the articulation on the arm whatsoever and still looks great. Actually, a very, very cool design choice here. So the red ring makes one accessory for Sy-Klone, which can be used as a weapon or just part of his overall look. Aside from that red ring, Sy-Klone also comes with his standard yellow shield that was included with both the vintage figure and the 2000X figure. The shield can easily clip onto either of his wrists and stays firmly in place. With both the large red ring, which may or not be bladed, and that yellow shield, just think of the damage Sy-Klone could actually do while spinning. Speaking of which, the action feature of course is not present. And, you know, this line is basically void of action features. But as a nod to the original, there is a small dial sculpted on his belt. Whether you think that's a cool nod or just annoyed by it, well, that's up to you. All I know is, at least I don't have to worry about my thumb getting sore from trying to spin him like the vintage figure, since, you know, the dial doesn't actually do anything. Alright guys, it's comparison time. Here's the new classic Sy-Klone standing alongside the vintage version of the character. The overall design, as you can see, is very similar to that of the original. But can you see what I was saying about those bright colors? He's even brighter than the vintage figure. And here he is next to the 2000X version, which was a little more stylized and, as you can see, had colors that were much more toned down. But there's that red ring. Overall, I'd have to say I'm pretty happy with Sy-Klone. I've always been a fan of his bright, colorful look, and I feel that he's going to fit right alongside the cast of colorful characters on my Masters of the Universe Classics shelf. While this is one of those characters that you can argue just isn't the same without his action feature, I do have to say that the figure still works fine without it, and at least you don't have to worry about the loose waist or the loose arms flopping around. I guess if you really want him to spin, you can get a turntable display like I use in my reviews. Whee! Sy-Klone goes on sale on April 15th on MattyCollector.com and is part of the 2011 Eternian Collectors Club subscription. Until next time.